Welcome back, everybody. We're here with George, who is just yawning because obviously it is late in Thailand where he is, and he has been kind enough to join us again and lecture us a bit more on what the historical context is. Welcome back, George. Third purpose of the Dulles brothers and the regime change destabilization strategies. Take it away where we left off last time.
Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about how as the OSS transitioned to the CIA, that Eisenhower put Allen Dulles in charge of the CIA, and his brother John Foster Dulles and head of the State Department, Secretary of State, and they had been working for Sullivan Cromwell in Manhattan. And Allen Dulles had worked in Switzerland when he was the OSS, and they had all worked in Britain before. So they were very in tight with the international banking community. And that's where the fusion between the CIA, big finance, and big business started. And ever since the 1950s, nothing's changed. So when you get back to what Wesley Clark is wondering, how so few people actually are making the decisions in the Pentagon, that's how it happened. John Lewis has always talked about most of the people in the OSS were hired out of the Ivy League, especially the Grand Strategies classes. Again, nothing changed. It still is that way. The Ann Applebaum was a professor there. The Kagan brothers were professors at Yale Grand Strategies classes. Donald Kagan, the father of Robert Kagan and Frederick Kagan, and later on it was Kimberly Kagan that was at the Grand Strategies class. You know, they were at Yale. Then they all go into the government. Then they get out. They hire their students to work in the key government agencies. Then they go run the big government think tanks. Then they can hire the 4-star generals, and when they get out, and give them 7-figure salaries,
Conspiracy
and everyone's
theories,
paid off.
Yeah. Russian propaganda.
So
Russian propaganda and conspiracy theories. There's no such thing as pushback, George. It doesn't exist. Didn't you hear from our last video that woman say that corruption doesn't exist in Ukraine or anywhere else for that matter?
Yeah. Ann Applebaum, the former adjunct professor or former professor in the Grand Strategies classes. Yeah.
Let's move on to slide 10.
Yeah. All right. So let's get. Okay. So in slide set 10, again, I'd mentioned some of this before. That's John Stockwell. He did a really, really great series of videos on the Vietnam War because he was there in the early to mid 70s during the pullout, and was talking about how corrupt and inefficient the Vietnam government was. Then he started working in Latin America. Boy, he really hated the Reagan administrations for funding the Contras. He thought that was really bad. Before that, he was working in Angola, and he talks about how that was completely manufactured. They had tribal conflicts. The Russians weren't taking over anything. They weren't really trying to. I mean, I don't know. Che Guevara was in the area, but it's too tribal. The problem with these third world countries adopting Marxism is they can't read German or French or English well enough to really understand Marx. They do it for the revolutionary aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Pol Pot and Yang Seri, don't know anything about Marx. The United States is funding these wars really needlessly, is what John Stockwell's point was, and the amount of people that they killed. So I was talking about the regime change destabilization strategies on our former videos from Zbigniew Brzezinski forward, but I throw John Stockwell in there because he goes back, from the 1970s, and I threw the Stephen Kinzer book in there about the Dulles brothers, because you can go all the way back. The CIA has basically done nothing but regime change destabilization policies. So let's go from the third point to the fourth point here, which is who actually runs the U.S. government. There's two things occurring here. I've been talking about how people come out of the grand strategies classes into the intelligence community and into the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
There's another facet that I want to discuss here. It's not in the video series. It's in my Transformation of America articles that I did for Punching Bag Post last year, which is something that we're going to have to get in down the road. But we went from a Christian conservative country to now a secular neo-Marxist country. Well, when you look at the AOC and the Squad, they are absolutely far leftist. So we have a woke university system because we abandoned the scientific project, like I talked about in the other videos with the Tubi and Cosminas article. Now we have this shift leftwards with the wokeism. So the Clinton administration, the Obama administration had been moving the left people into Department of Justice civil rights ever since the 1960s. What Obama did was he started moving the people from DOJ civil rights over to run all the other law enforcement agencies. So the Department of Justice law enforcement agencies is FBI, of course, Marshal Service, which is actually bigger than the FBI as far as manpower, and also the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They were part of the Treasury Department, but during the Department of Homeland Security reconstruction, they got moved from the Treasury Department over to DOJ, and the Secret Service that protects the president moved from the Treasury Department over to the Department of Homeland Security. So then when Obama came in, he started putting, in the Department of Homeland Security, they took the U.S. Coast Guard out of Department of Transportation and moved that over to Department of Homeland Security. So Department of Homeland Security has Customs Border Patrol, Immigration Customs Enforcement, and the Coast Guard and Federal Protective Services got moved over from GSA, which is the realtor of the United States government. They got moved over to DHS. So the Bush administration reorganization to make government more efficient actually made the government much more easily to control. Our founding fathers had split up the law enforcement agencies so nobody can control it. The Bush administration made it more efficient, but then that makes it easier to move the leftists over from the Department of Civil Rights over to the other government agencies and then over to the intelligence community. So if you start to talk about who run the government, you have the grand strategies class people out of the elite schools, let's say, because it's not just Yale and Harvard. I focus on them, but it's more. But you also have this leftist input. So now you have these two fused because where the intel community used to get Christian conservatives out of the Ivy League schools running them, that's no longer the case. Now you have leftists coming up through the Department of the Civil Rights Division, but you also have leftists going directly into the intel communities now. So the United States is now run by a smaller and smaller group of people that are much more left-leaning. So the coalition who runs the United States is really drastically shifted.
Yep.
That's why the whistleblower came out of those different programs I mentioned, moved to the different agencies, got put on Trump's national security his National Security Council got moved back over to CIA, ODNI, and then made that false impeachment claim against Trump, and then goes to work at a major, gets a golden parachute job at a major think tank. So again, you make a false accusation against the president. Does he fear repercussions? No, he gets rewarded. See, that's the extent that the game is rigged.
Yeah.
So Wesley Clark in 2007 is starting to get the idea. And then from watching that and a whole bunch of other things that I watch, this is where we are today. So now it's those two sections to running, but now it's that's how the United States is moving farther and farther left. And it is and that's how it's affecting our government. Because now they can put these agenda-driven people in Trump's National Security Council, and Trump walks in, he basically never had a chance. So if a Republican gets elected president, if it ever happens again, what are you going to do? Because these security clearances take a long time to get. So it's very difficult to weed these people out and put somebody else in. So now we get to so okay, that was the fourth point of who runs the government. Yeah, it's a small cabal of people, DOJ, civil rights, and the grand strategies people. So fifth, we get to the dual state aspect. So that's okay. In yellow there, I have that's just taken straight out of Wikipedia because it's nice and concise. This 1955 article, Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist, Morgenthau quoted other speakers talking about the dual state. It comes from the mid to later books of Plato's Republic. Is where that comes from, where you have a protectorate of society that are experts. The problem with that is, again, I go back to unified behavioral theory, the Hume Smith versus Marx Engels research design. The Marx Engels based theory should have been taken out of the social sciences after the Cold War ended, and everything should have gravitated to a non-central controller Hume Smith argument. But the United States, the Western university system actually did the opposite. They got away from the non-central controller free market Austrian school type of theories and gravitated towards the Marxist school of thought. And as the Tubi and Cosmides article, they also got rid of the measurement systems. So they got rid of the scientific method. So now, getting into this, are the experts are really miseducated experts. So they don't have, people think, oh, if the experts run everything, they're going to run everything for the benefit, run everything in the interest of the ruled, right? Well, no. Experts run everything in the interest of themselves.
George. Stop it, George. This all sounds like propaganda and Russian conspiracy theories. The elite love us.
Yeah.
They do everything they do for us. They care for us.
Yeah.
And they never do anything to like start wars or anything like that. Don't be silly.
Oh no. No, they don't rig. No, they don't do color revolutions or anything like that.
No. It's all propaganda.
Or get different ethnic groups fighting so they can profit off the chaos.
Just to be clear, for everybody who might be new here, just to be clear, this is a comedy show. This is not any correlation to reality is accidental. This is the only way that we can get through the YouTube story. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
take it away.
Without.
I already had to fight takedown from YouTube. I got labeled for medical misinformation for calling the last 2 years the beginning of the horsemen of the apocalypse and the pestilence being one of them. Both the bioweapon and the other thing. And I got back to YouTube and I was like, comedy, satire, humor. not reality. And they put it back up. So it works so far. We'll see how long it works. Remember to subscribe, everyone, for more atrocious
Yeah.
comedy from the working brother and the guests that he brings on.
Yeah. Well, you got to worry about that. I don't want we're sitting here talking about the government agencies, so
No, we're
I
not. We're
really don't
not. We're
want them to.
making jokes about it. It's just comedy.
Yeah, we're making humor. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah, just getting. Oh, the significance. What the reason why I throw in the Hans Morgenthau. Now there's Henry Morgenthau that wanted to debilitate Germany. He was Secretary of State. During World War II. This is Hans Morgenthau. He's a professor at University of Chicago, so it's different Morgenthau's there. But the reason why I bring that up is Paul Wolfowitz had, when he was at Chicago, he's at Cornell in Chicago, I believe it was. And yeah, he had Hans Morgenthau and Leo Strauss, and it would have been Joseph Cropsey too, if I believe, if my memory serves correctly. He would have had all of them as professors. So yes, so they learned the notion of the deep state. They get in power, and they created the dual state. So that's where that comes from. They say it's a conspiracy theory, but no, there is an actual article written about it. So it's not just ancient times of Plato's seventh and eighth book, I believe. I don't know, I haven't read that in 30 years, but it's about that.
Shall we move on?
So now, okay,
Kinder grand strategy.
yeah. So we just got a couple here. So let's get to 6 point, the post-Mackinder strategies. Yeah, all right. Why do they keep on talking about Putin attacking for no reason? Putin needs psychological therapy. Is because they don't want the type of PMESII and dime SWOT analysis that I'm giving here. Of course, why am I giving it here? Because of what Wesley Clark said. Democracy is supposed to be about informed consent. If people don't even know who's running the government and how they're making the decisions and what these books are, and that there's actual, like the guy in the comment section saying I'm talking about obscure theories. Well, no, these are the mainstream canon in the discipline.
They're
and
obscure
that's
by
what
design.
they're obscure by design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're hidden
So,
away in
yeah.
public somewhere in a library so that people don't find them. They're not on your TV set because
Yeah,
if
you can
people
get them from
knew them,
$10 on
you couldn't.
Amazon.
Yeah, but I'm saying if people knew them, then they wouldn't believe the Putin is crazy story. And unprovoked. It's amazing when you click through like YouTube and you see all these like history and whatnot channels that are have mutated into covering aspects of the Ukraine war, and every single one of them at the beginning of the video, they always start with the Russian unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. It's just like, no. Have you seen our videos?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like the real life floor videos on because he does some really good pipeline videos. And you can okay. I was watching something where this Samantha Power went to Budapest and she's gonna run USAID and National Endowment for Democracy in Budapest. So obviously everybody knows that the regime change and color revolution is going to end up in Hungary. But she has a
Yep.
$20 million budget. And I tie it into John Stockwell because CIA Political Action Center, Special Activities Center, Political Action Center works with USAID and NED and then all the Soros funded think tanks. So John Stockwell always talked about, well, he talked about the NED too, just like Brian Berletic. That's, this is well founded. It's been going on for decades. But the United States, so much of that $20 million is going to go into funding media, meaning alternative media. That's just for Hungary.
Nothing will go into corruption because corruption doesn't exist.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So just at a USAID, it's got a $20 million budget. So what else is being put in there, and then how much is Soros funding this kind of stuff? So whenever people see these really, really super nicely done videos that are really super edited, the the U.S. government and the Soros and Wall Street backed financial people, they are paying millions and millions and millions of dollars to YouTubers to put out videos. So whenever you see those tag sentences where they have to throw in Putin attacked for no reason, and then they'll talk about the subject matter, then out of nowhere, Putin attacked for no reason. Putin is crazy, and then they go back to the subject matter. I mean, that is you're watching um a
Sponsored video.
Mockingbird YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sponsored, yeah, by the National Endowment for Democracy.
And
I
we
mean,
are
you
not.
just know it.
The
So
Working
we're
Brother is not sponsored,
yeah,
which
we
is why you
obviously
should like, subscribe, and share this video. And also check out the Patreon. There will be a link in the description. We have a Patreon now, or I do. So you're welcome to
yeah,
contribute if you
I
like what you
cancel
see.
mine. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, you told me.
Um, oh, I don't even talk to people on my phone. I have people send me text messages. I don't talk to anybody. I mean, I'll come on here and I'll do a lecture, but I can't. I know I should do Patreon, but I just yeah, I really just can't do it.
Let's get
I'm
back
just
to your
not.
lecture.
I-
Cosmic
yeah. All right.
strategies.
Oh,
Slide
yeah.
13.
You forwarded me this paper a couple months ago, I believe. This is a really good one because we did the. Okay. What?
No, I was thinking 13. That's
Which,
where
okay.
we left off. I think
Okay.
that's as far as we got, right?
So you're on 13. Okay. Let's move. We did the sixth one. Yeah. Let's go to 14 because that was the
All
dual
right.
state theory. That's So then that was so 14 is the PNAC crowd, which is Bill Kristol, the Kagan brothers, Wolfowitz, Elliot Abrams, Richard Pearl from the past. Well, Rumsfeld Cheney, of course, but a little bit different. Let's see. Oh yeah, so here in 14, in the especially the older Felix Rex videos that we did, well, starting about last year ago. Yeah, they were talking about how Putin was attacking for territorial ambitions, and no, it's not. They're trying to keep Russia from integrating with the coastal peripheral power centers. So it's not that Russia needs more territory. They just need that Azov Sea area where their pipelines and ports come out of. So they don't need all the territory. They just need that one little area. And guess which one little area that the United States wants? And it's the Crimea and the Azov Sea area. Like
Yeah,
right now, they're not letting.
Funded through Nazis. Like let's not forget that little detail that they're, neo-Nazis and actual Nazis who are attacking Russia with German tanks, no less. Since we last talked, since we last talked, they got German tanks too. So it's gonna be fun. But
if people don't know what we're talking about, just watch Aaron Matei and Max Blumenthal on the Gray Zone. Or who else talks about that? Graham Phillips talks about that. And then there's
tanks?
I posted. About the Florida group and the right sector and
if you look even in mainstream media articles from like 2014 to 2017, you can find it, like The Guardian, you can find BBC, you can find CNN. I wish I had them queued up, but like there's a bunch of articles and video reports from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago of like, oh no, there's ultra right wings that we're funding by accident in Ukraine. We should stop. And they were even declared terrorist organizations by the U.S., if I'm not mistaken. And then that was
Yeah.
scrapped. But in any case,
Yeah.
let's get back to the slides.
All right. So you're getting into. Okay. Yeah. You forwarded me the Mike Whitney Unz article. The crisis in Ukraine is not about Ukraine. It's about Germany. So yeah, that article is really, really super good. I took a direct quote out of that, and I'll just read it because, yeah, like my Six Power Center, he's making a very similar argument to my Six Power Center argument that there's taking over Poland and Ukraine to get in between Germany and Russia because you don't want the largest energy supplier linked with the largest industrial center. It's not just Germany; it's the German-speaking world is Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Austria too, and all of them have really great, super good machine tool and petrochemical companies
Industry,
and a whole bunch of
basically,
cutting edge.
yeah.
Yeah, but super cutting edge and super good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because what the United States did, the arbitrageurs of Wall Street made a lot of money offshoring jobs during the 80s and 90s. And here it is, Robert Reich, head of the Clinton administration, which is now up at the Harvard Kennedy School, saying that we need to bring the jobs back. And Clyde Prestowitz, which was United States Trade Representative under Reagan, and then also under Clinton, he wrote the book Trading Places about the hollowing out of the United States government. Industry rather. This was a big deal during the mid to late 80s. And one would think that Donald Trump, his Make America Great platform was exactly what Robert Reich was saying during the late 80s and early 90s. But of course, Robert Reich, since he went to Harvard, all of a sudden changed his mind. He's not for that anymore. So it's kind of unbelievable. Let's go to so now Russia and Germany are integrating to create this big, huge industrial center. Meanwhile, the United States already deindustrialized. Now they're trying to reindustrialize by moving German companies over. We talked about that in the fake Rand report, which is what the next slide sets about. So we can move past 17. We can move to
not about Ukraine. It is about Germany. Indeed, it is. In more ways than one.
Yeah, so there I got, in this slide set 17, I listed our previous video. And what do we got here? Okay. Now this is interesting because, all right, this came up with the last video we did about the Amber pipeline in Lithuania. And the takeaway there is it doesn't matter where the pipelines blow up, inside Russia or outside Russia, the objective is to stop oil and gas going from Russia to an end user, and the end user paying in rubles and leaving the petrodollar. So the United States doesn't want anybody to leave the petrodollar. So it doesn't matter where the pipelines blow up, because I'm looking at LinkedIn on the different foreign policy and intelligence community blogs, and people will be like, oh, wow, great. United States, UK operatives are blowing up pipelines. Ukrainian special forces or whatever are blowing up pipelines inside Russia. That's really, really great. But when a pipeline like Nord Stream or the one in Poland that blew up, or the one in Lithuania that blew up recently, when they blow up, then they think Russia did it. No, it doesn't matter where the pipelines blow up. The motive is to keep people from leaving the petrodollar. So the motive is the same, and the perpetrator is the same. So that's the takeaway there. Because in this slide set, the Washington Post did an article on it in 2004 that comes from Thomas C. Reed's book and the Abyss, where they talk about they gave faulty software to the Russians during the 80s, and one of the Bruzma pipeline blew up closer to Siberia because they overloaded the pressures for the pipeline, so it'd blow up intentionally. So they did that blew up in 1989. So it's not only the pipeline that they blew up. Oh wait, okay, let's stay on track here. They also don't want the Sakhalin, for the same reason they don't want the Sakhalin oil and gas to go to Hokkaido in the from Sakhalin Island to Hokkaido Island in Japan. So it's not just one specific area that Whitney talks about in the 6 power center theory videos that I did with Felix Rex and did again with Working Brother. It's all the way around Eurasia. So Whitney focuses on Germany in his article, but in my conversations, I go through the infrastructure projects completely around Eurasia. It's every single one of them.
Yeah, it's like we said in the last video, that basically most people will only look at it from their perspective, whereas you tie it in from high above perspective, where you see the grand strategy of how everybody's doing the same thing, just from all different corners of Russia, basically, for 200 plus years.
Yeah, so this is
Russian
such a conspiracy theory. Yeah, it's such Russian propaganda that, again, I have the academic books and the Washington Post articles on the side.
Let's move on to the next slide and Amit Sengupta's video. Amit Sengupta is a good YouTuber. I've recently discovered him, and his videos are very poignant.
Yeah, I've been listening to him for years. I liked his take on the Armenian-Azeri war a couple of years ago. He has a lot of good sources, a lot of good information. But okay, so yeah, it does. This one was on the International North-South Trade Corridor, because now it comes down to India. Okay, I went from a 5 power centers doctrine to a 6 power center doctrine because since the 1950s, India is now an industrial power. So India is furious at the United States because we not only funded Pakistan, their rival, and funded the Mujahideen Sunni Wahhabi extremist groups during the 1980s. And then we left, but then we came back and funded the same groups with $80 billion worth of weapons and training. We did it again. And it's a destabilization project because they want these different groups to blow up the pipeline and port, the Chinese pipeline and port projects in Central Asia. And since Modi rejected Dalit Singh, I forget the other guy that went, but since Modi did not want to do sanctions against Russia because he's mad, because he fully understands that these violent extremist organizations are funded on purpose. He went ahead and signed the deal with Putin to trade in rupees and also trade in UAE dirham. So they're funding exchanges, but they're also funding in UAE dirham out of Dubai, which is, let me take a drink of water.
Yeah. Conspiracy theories and
Okay.
Russian propaganda.
So the takeaway here is just like in the city of London, where the rules are there is no rules. Usually in an Islamic country, interest rates are against the law, except
Mm-hmm.
for the financial district of Dubai, which is just between a couple, right along Sheikh Zayed Road, in between downtown and the Burj Khalifa.
Yep.
The rules, the British banking center, moved in there, and the rules are there is no rules. So the Dubai banks are apparently selling, transacting Russian oil in dirhams so people can flee the petrodollar. That's something that's just really under discussed. Yeah, I go through Dubai all the time.
How long has it been since the bombing of the Nord Stream?
But that was September 26th.
Was it September?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, it's been a while. Let's get into the next
So
slide, number 20.
All right. Because here we're talking about, just to kind of hit this, because Whitney was talking about separating Germany from Russia
Who's
in
Whitney?
that article.
Oh, in the
the guy
article
that wrote the
a second
article.
ago. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you're the one that sent me the article.
Yeah, this article. Yeah, I just didn't recall the name. This article. Yeah, got it. So what's
just
Whitney
to touch
saying?
on this, because if oil and if cheap, natural gas gets to Germany, even if it doesn't go through Poland, like if it went through South Stream, which the United States all of a sudden took this big interest in flipping the elections in Bulgaria, which haven't quite flipped the way that they want, but they did stop the South Stream, but they stopped the Nord Stream because if cheap Russian natural gas gets to if it gets to Germany and bypasses Poland, well then Germany, as you can see in this map, has such an extensive pipeline infrastructure in it, then it can sell the natural gas to anybody in Europe, basically. But what
If
we're
it has
really
any left
concerned
over.
here,
yeah.
What we're really concerned here is with Germany supplying, the German world, Germany, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Austria, and the Danube River Valley countries. You're really concerned with separating Russia from its former Warsaw Pact countries or former Yugoslavian partner countries that would be more apt to readily trade in non-dollars for Russian oil and gas. In this case, had Germany allowed the Nord Streams to go through and they started trading in euros and rubles and cut out the petrodollar, well, then the other Central European countries could just trade directly with Germany in non-dollars, and then Germany could trade in rubles. So it would only take Germany to start trading in rubles, and then you're going to have, let's just say, at least 6 countries that would have followed behind them, possibly 10. Yep. So if, let's just say, 6 or 7 countries left the American dollar, well, that would be pretty significant, and the demand for United States dollars abroad would radically decrease, and that could send the United States into rampant inflation. You sent me that video the other day on Telegram about Edward Dowd. He was on Tucker. You also did an appearance on Bannon's show talking about the United States is just, because I've been talking about the United States is $31 trillion in debt. In the Felix Rex videos last year, I was talking about the unfunded pension liabilities, the unfunded state pension liabilities, And yeah, he came up with the number of the United States is really actually about $130 trillion in debt was his estimate. And he's a former BlackRock finance guy. I just make guesstimates, but his numbers should be fairly accurate. I posted those on LinkedIn. So the significance of Germany is it's got such an extensive pipeline. If they had Nord Stream go through, you would have at least about a half dozen countries leaving the petrodollar, which would be really bad. So the problem with Whitney's article is he doesn't go far enough. But he wrote that on February 14th, basically 2 weeks before the invasion. Okay, so I take a quote. All right, so then here we're at 21. Already went over Central Europe, half dozen countries leaving. In the main text, leaving the petrodollar. The pipeline Nord Stream blew up, but same reason why all the other ones blew up. I got an interesting quote from the Whitney article. I just cut and pasted it. I'll just read it out loud. It's from George Friedman, CEO of Stratfor at the Chicago Council on Foreign Affairs.
So a Russian propagandist, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, like the Council of Foreign Relations in New York, it's another very influential Bilderberg group. So his is the primordial interest of the United States, over which for centuries we have fought wars, First, Second, and Cold Wars, has been the relationship between Germany and Russia. Because united there, they're the only force that could threaten us. And to make sure that that doesn't happen. So he's talking about the intelligence and military industrial complex is to make sure that Russia and Germany never unite. And again, that integration was discussed by a guy named Ratzel in Germany and Haushofer during the 1930s. So yeah, let's go to the next one.
Sabotaging since '89. Good title.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the Brusma pipeline being blown up in 1989, but the CEO of Deutsche Bank was also blown up. Now, I remember that because that was big news back in the day. And the United States attributed that to Baader Meinhof.
Who's
now,
that?
A video came out. Baader Meinhof was the left-wing communist group. The Red Brigade. There's a Red Brigade in Germany that was active communist group. There's also one in Italy, and then the French communist groups were also very active during the 50s and 60s. So the CEO, Alfred Herson, who signed the deal to bring the Brusma pipeline, went through Belarus into Ukraine and then Poland and then into Eastern Germany, which under the Soviet Union, that was fine. Then Austria was a neutral country, so it allowed the pipelines to come in from Hungary into Austria. So Alfred Herson brought the pipeline from Austria into Western Germany from the south. So the Reagan administration did not like that. So that's how they rigged the software to overpressurize the pipeline in Siberia part and blow that up. So not only did they blow up the pipeline, but then the CEO mysteriously blows up. Now, he had a level 9 armored Mercedes. So he's got the highest level. Yeah, he had a level 9. For those people that don't know about armored cars, there's different levels. It has to do with armored thickness on the doors, whether the floorboards are armored or not, how thick the glass is, Like a level 2 or 3 will take a pistol round, but won't take a rifle round.
Yeah.
Or higher levels will have thicker armor on the sides, but the undercarriage is still regular sheet metal. So then they're susceptible to roadside bombs.
Yeah.
And then the roofs are armored. So the level 9s, it's armored completely all around the vehicle with armor and glass thick enough to take rifle rounds. So you're talking about 308s and 7.62-54 Soviet rounds. Of course, if you're going to hit it with a 300 Win Mag, it's a couple of shots is going to go through. But he was blown up by an EFP. It's a shaped charge where the explosive sends molten copper to actually melt and penetrate armor. Of course, it happens in a millisecond. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like an RPG, but it's it's not fired out of a rocket. Well,
Planted,
it's fired differently, but similar in effect. Yeah.
So one would say it wasn't an amateur hit.
What they did was they parked a bicycle on the side of the road at the same place for a month. And then one day they said it, I mean, just reading the Wikipedia article and some other articles about it, they said it was a 7 kg bomb. So that's 14, 15 pounds or something like that. That's not necessarily a lot of explosives, but it's the type of explosives. It was triggered by a infrared beam, so it's not a non-visible laser. So when the front of the vehicle went across the non-visible laser, then it fired that EFP round.
Yeah.
And it had to hit that door precisely to hit Alfred Herrhausen. I should pronounce his name correctly. Herrhausen. So that thing had to be timed really, really accurately because it didn't hit the front seat where the armed agent in charge would be. It hit the back seat where he would be sitting. So that thing had to be so well timed and so well thought out that to think that a communist group did it, but what they did was, Vladimir Putin, of course, was a young KGB operative. So they were saying that the KGB did it. Let me just read this quote from the Whitney article because it's really, really good.
Go on. And I'm going to check out this 2.5 hour video. I'm going to check out the 2.5 hour video that you posted the next slide as soon as we're done recording. I've never heard of this incident before, so I'm learning something new here as well. Thank you. Keep going.
Okay. So in a world where Germany and Russia are friends and trading partners, there is no need for U.S. military bases, no need for expensive U.S.-made weapons and missile systems, and no need for NATO. There's also no need to transact energy deals in U.S. dollars or stockpile U.S. treasuries to balance accounts. Transactions between business partners can be conducted in their own currencies, which is bound to precipitate a sharp decline in the value of the dollar and a dramatic shift in economic power. This is why the Biden administration opposes Nord Stream. It's not just a pipeline, it's a window into the future, a future in which Europe and Asia are drawn closer together into a massive free trade zone that increases their mutual power and prosperity while leaving the U.S. on the outside looking in. Now, last July, I was up in, I was on a motorcycle trip and I was on the Felix Rex show. I was talking about the global political center of gravity shifting. Because it's not just if you have an integrated Russia where they have 5 of the 6 power centers of the world integrated infrastructurally. The global economic political center of gravity, it shifts from Washington and London, or Wall Street and the center and the city of London, if you're talking about the banking industry. It shifts from there. It shifts to Berlin and Moscow. Now, in the other videos, we haven't done China enough, but China was sending 30 train loads a week to Duisburg, Germany, going through the other German areas. Okay, so since the sanctions stopped the Chinese shipments going through the Moscow and in through Belarus and Poland, that the northern route, the United States, well, conveniently, there's all these protests and riots in Iran. It just happens to be, and that blocks the Chinese southern route going through Iran from the trains. So now China wants to use the middle route, which means you got to offload in the Caspian and then reload on trains in Baku and then go to Tbilisi and into cars and then in through Turkey and to get into Europe. So it's not just the integration with Russia that the United States is blocking with a destabilization strategy. It's the Chinese infrastructural projects as well. So if these power centers integrate, yes, the global political power center really switches to Berlin, Moscow, and Beijing, where then the United States is sitting in North America by itself after it's already deindustrialized during the 1980s. That's why we went over the Prestowitz in the Robert Reich book. So, yeah, let's move to the next slide.
Putin is crazy.
So we're at 23. Huh? So
we're 23?
Yeah.
Okay.
I threw in the Alfred Herrhausen video.
I'm gonna definitely check it out. I haven't heard the story before, and it looks like it's a detailed look into the whole incident. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, because in the United States, we've had like something like 100 food processing plants, mysteriously catching fire. We've had all kinds of train derailments, where a lot of them are what they call shunts. Where
what's your take on the Ohio thing? Like going off topic a little bit, but like considering like the chemical spill and whatnot, like what's your reaction to that?
Well, I got a friend on my Signal channel. One of Michael Jan's friends, I should say, that he was going up there a couple of days ago. Now he hasn't posted on that yet. They're super tight-lipped about it, but he's a really good guy. He's extremely qualified. He'll come back with the information, but there's a lot of trains that are being derailed on purpose with people rigging the track switching equipment.
Yep.
And in the past, that's always been done by groups like the Earth Liberation Front and some of those far left environmental groups. But you also have to kind of wonder whether the Chinese and the Russians are over here doing that, because we're destabilizing. We've gone through this thing where we've discussed how the United States does the color revolution and destabilizes different areas of Eurasia. Brian Berletic's show focuses on that topic. He does like a video just about every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff is occurring in the United States now because 2 people can play this game, or in this case, 3 or 4. So we're in, we're in a low intensity conflict in World War III right now, and it looks like the United States government is really trying to suppress people from looking into it.
I think I'm gonna have this. I think I'm gonna have this as a standard question from now on to all my guests. When do you think World War III started? What's your take on when it actually started?
2014 Maidan Revolution.
Do you think so? You don't think it was before that, huh?
Yeah.
You don't think it was in the 90s when they bombed Yugoslavia and they like broke international law? Or maybe even before that?
I would
Vietnam.
No, because I would say that Putin made a strong effort to reform. He really has. Oh, and Applebaum, that video is just that thing is so tough to listen to. She's talking about how the different Russian oligarchs are falling out windows, like Putin just gets mad at them. No, he's getting rid of
traitors.
He's getting rid of the oligarchs. He's getting rid of the oligarchs that the Clinton administration put into power, and the different Harvard economists put in power. Jeffrey Sachs is one of those people, but he wanted the power system broken up, so he resigned because the power center was the power was too concentrated because a few oligarchs are easier to control. So Putin is basically telling people to start investing in Russia or else. And of course, the or else is they mysteriously die. So Ann Applebaum leaves that rationale out. So if these billionaires, because these people have billions of dollars, all they have to do to get on Putin's good side is just move a factory or 2 back to Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And in his recent speech, the speech that was like anxiously awaited, he spent a couple of minutes talking exactly about that, how he has forgiveness for the oligarchs who fled, and they all need to come back and reinvest their money in Russia because Russia is growing, etc., etc. But we've wandered off course. Let's get back to Alfred Herrhausen and sum that up for us so that we can move on.
No, I did. I'm on 20. I moved down to 24 already. Yeah, moved down.
All right.
Yeah, because I already talked about the Ann Applebaum.
All right. So then should we go on to 25 and round it off?
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
What I wanted to talk about, what do I got here? Okay. So 25 is the last one. Yeah. A guy named Richard Authy wrote a book on mineral rights in 1994 in, what was it, Niger? But he coined the term resource curse, where countries with a lot of minerals and oil and natural gas, the big Western multinational corporations will come in, they'll set up a dictator and some oligarchs because a handful of people are easier to deal with than a democracy. And he said, the United States really needs to stop doing that. And of course, I'm in and out of graduate school and this and that and the other thing. And, all the 20-year-olds are always talking about, oh, yeah, we need to stop this. But no, once these people get into power and they get into the different government agencies, in real life, these idealistic 20-year-olds become super corrupt, super fast. The United States puts oligarchs into power everywhere. I mean, we always have. I went back to this. The reason why I mentioned the John Stockwell videos and the Stephen Kinzer book about the Dulles brothers is the United States has always done that, and every generation says they're not going to do it, yet every generation seems to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So forget about the idealistic 20-year-olds. No, by the time they become 40 or 50-year-olds, they'll take the 2 or 3 houses and the Mercedes and the BMWs and forget their principles. So that's
Yeah.
what that's about. And yeah, and Applebaum, boy, she just, like I said, it's just really tough to listen to her because she
All I can
just,
say is if you listen to that 2 hour or 2.5 hour video that like you sent me, hat off to you, man, because I couldn't listen to like more than
yeah,
the 3 minutes that we
I
played in the
couldn't.
last video.
Yeah, because everything, yeah, when she talks about Ukraine army is not corrupt, everything is just a misnomer, just out of context, of just one sentence to the next.
It's not a
Completely, I
misnomer.
mean,
It's exactly the opposite of reality. It's there's like nothing
yeah, oh my
accidental
God.
about it.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
almost like we should just do a video breaking that down by 1 minute every minute and putting that everything she says, into the
Into
context,
actual
because it's
context.
just, yeah, oh
Yeah.
my
We
God.
could we could do a weekly series. We could do a weekly series
She
on
is
that.
just, she's just twisted.
Mm.
Nothing occurs for the reasons that she said it does. If you know anything about the area or anything about economic and political development theory.
Or
Anyway,
history.
yeah, let's just get to the last one. And she's a history professor. It's just mind blowing.
Mm.
All right, so yeah, this video series places the evolution of Kinder theory into modern PMESII and Dime format to show the audience how Hans Morgenstau's 6 principles of realism is applied to real-world geopolitical competition. PMESII and Dime modeling represents the instruments of national power assessments that is the basis of realist theory. So, yeah, you get realists, of course, Mearsheimer's at University of Chicago also. They really talk about how realism trumps ideology and utopian grandiose ideals.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with these different realist theories is they don't actually. I really haven't seen any
Are
that
not
actually
based in
do any
reality.
PMESII and Dime modeling.
Reality.
It really is funny because I was watching a Mearsheimer video and I agree with all of his concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you in methodology class, you have to take a concept and figure out how you're going to measure that concept. So you got to define it and then get measurement scales. So
Scientific
PMESII and Dime,
process.
yeah. So yeah, Cartesian processes or Bayesian, depending on what you're trying to get, stochastic or linear measurement or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was watching this one Mearsheimer video where someone was talking about how he didn't do that. I think his arguments are right, but it's going to take a few before we get a slide set up. These slide sets are 100 some odd pages long, every single one of them. But I want to do Mearsheimer because I want to operationalize that into actually a causal argument, because he's right, but he doesn't know how to take it the next step. Of course, someone like him creates.
Doesn't know, doesn't want to. Maybe he got a Mercedes too. You never know. How do you know he didn't get a Mercedes?
No,
he is old.
I'm saying what a guy like him or Hans Morgenthau throws out raw concepts. Someone like me translates it into a measurement system. So their finished product is my raw material, is what I'm getting about academic wise. I look for people like that need something. Yeah.
That need to be built on, basically.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's stuff that needs to get built on, but the since the Western academia abandoned the scientific process, you don't have idea guys. Well, you don't have measurement people because they got rid of the measurement system, so they don't have measurement people. You know, quants, if you will, that actually take this raw material and put it. The university system should work like an assembly line, where the qualitative people produce the ideas for the quantitative people. And that system's totally broken down. So that's why we have such messed up foreign policy. But yeah,
Let's give a
so you
sneak
get
peek.
realist theory that
Yeah, go on.
you get yeah, we're stepping on each other a little bit here because we got the delay and it's kind of tough. But yeah, so Hans Morgenthau, he's got good ideas, but yeah, he doesn't do the PMESII and dye modeling, but I added in there.
We've been going for about an hour and almost 10 minutes. Let's give people a preview of part 2. This is going to be part 2, the expanding of NATO and a budding bipolar world. I can't wait to get into it with George. A little more detail on the lead up to the Ukraine crisis, as it is sometimes referred to. George?
Yeah.
Tell us about Thailand. How are you enjoying your trip there?
Oh, I was at an area in the United States. I couldn't get a international driver's permit right away, so I'm having one shipped over. Then as soon as I get that, I want to head into Cambodia and then Laos. So I'm kind of waiting for that.
We're looking for that motorcycle footage to come back at us when you do. In the meantime, we will sign off.
Yeah.
Thank you, George. I look forward to the next installment. Get some music going. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And have a good one.